So, I want to talk about panic attacks. And I want to talk about it because I had one this last week. I had no warning that it was coming. I had no clue, no warning signs, nothing like that. I went to film for a client. Just nothing crazy, nothing stressful, just a bunch of interviews. Setups like this. I have the camera, I've got, the mic, and people just talk. You ask them questions, they talk, no big deal. But as I was getting very, very close to their place of business, I noticed my heart rate was elevating. I noticed that I was feeling kind of off, a little bit dizzy, almost kind of dissociating a little bit, kind of like just separating sort of from my body. I don't even know if that makes sense. If you've never had a panic attack, that might not make sense, but you sort of feel like you're looking at yourself just a little bit, not completely. But I knew something wasn't right. And rather than admit that and say, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I need to take a few minutes, I just pushed through it. I set up my camera. I did get some water. My heart rate was going crazy. We were like 140 to 170 beats a minute, like sustained. I made it somehow through the first interview, grabbed a few extra shots of them, and then I couldn't do it anymore. Like I knew I was not okay. I was getting really, really nauseous. I knew something was wrong, and it felt, well, and I guess technically it was physical because I was manifesting physical symptoms of what was going on internally, but it felt very, like it felt physical. Like I thought, oh crap, like something's going on with my heart. We also thought, hey, maybe I've got hypoglycemia. Maybe it's, a sugar crash. It doesn't usually hit me like that. Usually I'm pretty good at monitoring it. But usually it doesn't hit me in that way. And so I wasn't really sure that it was, but we got me some Gatorade. We sat me down, and it wasn't stopping. And I was starting to freak out, and I would verbalize this. Thankfully, my client was incredibly cool, and we stopped the shoot a little bit early. We got through the interviews, but we stopped before grabbing some additional shots of the other people. And we went to the urgent care. I got an EKG. I talked to a doctor. It became pretty clear that it was a panic attack. There was nothing wrong with my heart, nothing wrong with my vitals, except that, my heart was beating really, really fast and rhythmically, which, in addition to me by this point just being a complete emotional basket case, like every time I tried to speak, I was crying. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. But it was a panic attack. And I haven't had very many of them in my life. Really, the only other time I can think of that I had a few panic attacks was the week that I realized I no longer believed in Christianity. And I think I talked about that in one of the early videos on my channel. But that one, it was a little bit different in that I felt like I couldn't breathe with that one. This one, it was much more like the heart. But same kind of thing, same kind of treatment, had an EKG. That one had an ultrasound to make sure that my heart was actually okay. This one didn't do that. I've got a full physical next week just to make sure. Plus I'm due for a physical anyway. But it was wild. But the interesting thing about it that was different with this one than the last one is how the aftermath of it, because it was much more intense. Like the ones that I had in 2021, they were at home, nobody was around, it was the middle of the night, scary as hell, but it wasn't like I was in this public forum far away from home, where I didn't have anything, like no resources to deal with it. I didn't know what was going on. It wasn't a familiar urgent care. I had no idea. I was really at the mercy, thankfully, of good people, but really at the mercy of the people around me, which was scary. And I did get prescribed Xanax to take if one pops up, which is great. I tried a half a tablet just to see what it would do so I would know. I felt very relaxed for that afternoon that I tried the half a tablet. But kind of in the days after that, breathing, that feeling like I couldn't breathe started again, like it did in 2021. Like I felt like, oh my gosh, I can't freaking breathe. This is scary. I don't know what's happening. Started to feel myself spiral. So I've had to learn and really, really work with a lot of techniques, different breathing techniques to calm myself down, meditation, talking to myself, saying things like, this is a sensation. This is not a threat. When I start to feel like my heart rate increase, or feel like there's like shallow breathing, things like that. Or one of the sensations I experienced a lot of was a lot of tingling in my fingers and just all over my body, not like a long consistent tingling, just like little tingles here and there right before the panic attack hit, and for several days after the panic attack hit. At this point, it's stopped for several days, but it was really, really intense. It was really, really scary. Not that I ever did before, but it certainly will never, ever take somebody talking about panic attacks as something light, because it is very, depending on like the intensity of it, it really feels like you're dying and you don't know what's happening and you don't know why. And, looking back on it, I could kind of trace where, okay, I can see kind of where that stress buildup was coming from. But at the time, it was just like freaking blindsiding me. There were a lot of things, I've been stressed out about the political situation in the US, international politics. Even though I've tried to step back from the news, I'm still aware of what's going on to some extent. I have a lot of, and this won't surprise anybody who's been listening to this video already, but I have a lot of medical stress, you might say medical trauma. When I was very young, I had growth hormone deficiency. And so I had a lot of medical tests when I was 2-3 years old to try and figure out what was going on, get me on a good treatment plan so I could get to be as tall as I am. And your 2-3-year-old brain doesn't understand why you're getting blood draws and stuck with needles and all of these different things happening that are really, really scary, and why your parents aren't protecting you. And so I've always had, since then, kind of this, I guess, medical trauma, really weird, strong reactions to medical scenes in shows, operations, things like that, even being in hospitals sometimes. But just stuff like that happens. And then my father passed away from cancer. It was very brutal. I saw the whole thing, and that just kind of compounded the medical trauma sort of thing, which I think fed into it. But the point of that being that the previous couple days I had filmed a whole course to help medical students pass their medical exams. And so, there were example questions that were pretty graphic. And, during that time, I'd worked really hard to kind of calm myself. I'd used a technique called havening, where you kind of like, you're touching your body and it kind of like calms your nervous system down. But I think I hadn't really processed through that or really like dealt with that. And so that was just kind of like building up in my nervous system. And I also pulled some muscles doing some of that yoga that I talked about. I think it was in the last video. And, kind of around my groin area. That does not feel good. I was stressed about that. So there were just a lot of little itty bitty factors that were building up. I didn't end up sleeping well the night before. Like I didn't get to sleep until after 2 a.m. Really, really not a great situation. Just for the nerves, for the nervous system. And it happened. And it was really, really rough. And so I've just really over this last week been learning a lot about panic attacks, a lot about what's normal after them, a lot about, okay, how do you take care of yourself? How do you build that resilience? And of course, thankfully, I have the Xanax. So when I'm filming a wedding, as of recording this tomorrow, we'll see, kind of what happens. But I have that as a tool. If I feel myself start to spiral, I can go grab that out, take one. It does make me a little drowsy, so I couldn't drive and I might not be able to perform my job quite as well. But at least I wouldn't spiral into needing to get rushed to the ER and like ruin their wedding day. I've shot enough weddings that I could probably shoot one half asleep and be okay. But having those tools is really important, as well as having the tools within myself, reminding myself that I'm safe, that this is just a neurological response, that I am okay, and practicing that breathing, practicing all of these different things. It's really, really going to help me. Earlier this week, I was scared to drive. I've gotten over that. I feel fine driving. I had another shoot where it was just filming interviews for a client. I did very, very well there. I was very nervous going to it. Did a lot of that breath work, that calming work, and I was fine. But yeah, I wanted to share this because it was a crazy and really, really stressful experience last Saturday, and it's been almost a week, and I wanted to talk about it before today. I'm recording this on a Friday, but I couldn't quite do it. I just didn't feel like I could do it up until now. So I just wanted to share that. If you've stuck around listening to my a little bit rambly story, thank you so much, and make sure you're taking care of yourselves, and I'll catch you very soon.